What's up, guys? So I came back from watching Broly. Actually, I watched it about an hour ago, but I stopped by to get some lunch. Also, quick side story. This is my first time going to the movies by myself, and honestly, I was more persuaded into going to see it more than anything because I I knew I would see it, but I wasn't sure about seeing it at the theater. But if I got to see it at the theater, then great for me, right? But anyways, and then honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I thought that I would be feeling all weird and bored about going by myself, but nah, it's cool. Anyways, to the movie, which is what the topic is. So, right off the bat, I am going to say that I am quite pleased with this movie. From the animation standpoint, I thought it was beautiful. Like, it had. Is the word graphics correct to use? Yeah, I guess so. I'm used to saying graphics when it comes to describing games, but I liked how it looked. It was nicely drawn, good details, good animation, and unlike the old stuff from like back in the day, it was like it seemed that like technology was just primitive back then, so the animation was kind of bad, but um it wasn't horrible. But anyways, this is definitely very visually appealing. You guys know that I like to talk about the music, and I must say that the soundtrack in this movie was good. Even the ending credits song I want to listen to again because I thought it was pretty nice. Now the movie itself, remember guys, just to give you a heads up, this is going to be a spoiler talk because otherwise I just don't know how to go over a movie without saying some things. But story-wise, the pacing was good. I did not feel like it was boring or lacking or just parts that were dragging along. They did kind of a recap about what we already knew when it came to the story of the Saiyans and whatnot, but some things were actually changed. Like, for instance, they didn't really show a major confrontation between Bardock and Frieza like in the Trunks movie. Sorry, not Trunks movie. The Bardock, the father of Goku movie. Of course, because this is a movie dwelling on another thing, so you cannot expect for it to show in detail the things that were happening. But I particularly like that they would introduce something, go over the highlight, and then it's done, and that helped to build up for what the main plot would actually be. I thought that it might be a Broly origin story where, what can I say? Kind of like the originals, where we just saw that he was this angry child at the look and sound of Goku all the time. But in this movie, it wasn't that at all. Like, supposedly in the original movies, what made Broly be angry like that is that Goku would be crying next to him all the time. Well, in this movie, the plot is entirely different. It's more of, yeah, he was born with an astonishing power level, and that caused concern for King Vegeta, but it's not like they straight up wanted to kill him. They just sent him to another planet, and Vegeta was like, okay, he is clearly going to grow up to be a threat. So if he can manage to live in this one planet that really doesn't have any value and it's uninhabitable, then I guess he will find his way amongst us somehow. But, anyways, I like that the plot was clear and it made more sense, and I thought that it was way better than what we saw in the original movies. And then we get to see Goku's parents, both of them. We get to see his mom, and I thought that was pretty cool because I always wondered what his mom would have looked like. I'm not sure that we saw her in the past in any other Dragon Ball Z movie, but I thought that was neat because we could see what kind, even if it's brief, we could see what kind of relationship his parents had and how they felt about him. And basically, yeah, Goku was born to like really low class warrior ranks, but But in the end, his parents were like all nice and sweet about him. I thought that it reminded me of Man of Steel when like Superman's parents are like shipping him away. um Goku's parents were not really like touchy feeling with him, but it was nice to see Bardock just carrying this one pod clandestine and then trying to ship him away. I thought that was super neat because I had no idea what to expect from Bardock as a character. In fact, I didn't think that we would see him much. I knew that he would be there, but I thought that they would save him just for the confrontation. But they still showed him as someone who had a hunch that Frieza was up to the plan of extermination. And of course, no one wanted to believe him. But in the end, it happened. Frieza blows up the planet, and the mother was really skeptical about it. Like Goku's mom, it was like, oh no, it doesn't have to be that way, this and that. And then Bardock is, oh yeah, it can, because Frieza has always been afraid of our legend, and now we are having offspring that seem to be getting stronger and stronger. So I thought that it was just great to see the way that they were explaining that plot, which, if you're new and you're watching this movie and you have never really seen anything about Dragon Ball Z in the past, some stuff may not make sense to you. But who at this point has not seen Dragon Ball? But I felt a little nostalgic on certain stuff. What else can I say? The Paragus as a character, he's still the same little old douchebag that we met him as. He still invented a gadget to try to keep Broly under control. Broly still has anger issues. But honestly, Paragus was not abominable to me as a character, just like I thought in the original movies. In the original movies, every single scene that he was on, I just hated it. I just wanted to fast forward through it. But they show him get old and stuff, and I thought that was a pretty neat take. So I was glad to see a better Paragas. That's always exciting. And then another scene that I thought was kind of cute was when Broly explained where his little animal fur skirt came from, and basically that's supposed to be the ear of this one monster. That's it's supposed to be the only friend in the universe he has ever had. And I thought that was cute because we get to see a side of Broly, of him as an individual with thoughts and feelings, and he actually has dialogue. Like, I always thought that he was this being who couldn't reason, he could not talk, he did not have any vocabulary, he was just an absolute, like, dumb guy. But no, and this time around, he was so much better as a character. So I was glad to see that they gave him some actual lines. And then on top of that, he met other folks within the Frieza Force that, like, it was two characters that actually ended up saving his life later. But I thought it was cool because the way that the movie unfolded, I honestly did not see coming at all. Whereas to me, freaking Dragon Ball Z is always predictable. But I thought that because I loved Super so much, and pretty much all of my favorite characters were back, like Whis, then it was exciting to see that take. Okay, so they also, within this movie, we can say that this is also a Gogeta movie, because the only Gogeta movie we had had in the past, like Goku and Vegeta fusing into that form and not Vegito, it was when we had that stupid Janemba movie, which we can all agree we can do without. That was a dumb movie. Like, it was so dumb that I never saw it again. And I honestly do not remember anything else about it except the fact that the planet that they were in, or whatever it is that they were in, it looked like a ton of jelly beans in the sky. And then Janemba used to be a really fat yellow fuck. But outside of that, it's like we finally get to see a good quality Gogeta. And of course, they show what happens when you do not get the dance straight. Vegeta still feels embarrassed about the little dance, so they have to go. Goku has to spend like a minute trying to convince him to do it, and then he plays the husband daddy card on him, and then Vegeta ends up agreeing. But at first they show him as really fat, and then he gets really old and skinny, and then you have to wait 30 minutes for him to reset. And during those 30 minutes, Frieza was supposed to be filling in the part where Broly was fighting, um, to like calm him down because Goku ends up teleporting to Piccolo. But I thought that was also neat because we get to see Frieza having a crack at him. And boy, he was getting beat up really bad. And even Goku got beat up really bad. And speaking of Goku, I want to say that we saw a little bit of Ultra Instinct, but it was not really like the main fighting technique that Goku displayed. So I'm not sure if we really had Ultra Instinct in there or if it was just really brief and Goku for some reason could not achieve and sustain that form. Or maybe he knew that if he used Ultra Instinct, he could take Broly down, and he decided to stay away from that because his intent is not to kill Broly, since he sensed that Broly deep down can be a really good person. So, on that one, I'll need you guys to give me your opinion, or if you know for a fact what happened, if UI was really there, because I want to say that there was a glimpse of it, but it was so brief that I don't think we can even count it. But anyways, it was good to see Gogeta being also in blue form, because I felt that would happen. Of course, we cannot just have a Super Saiyan Gogeta in a movie that's already beyond, way beyond Super Saiyan. But but I thought it was neat to finally see a good Gogeta. That was exciting. Let's see what else. Frieza, I liked his introduction because we get to see how he got ascended into the ruler in King Cold's place. And I loved how they said that he has a short temper and he's much more ruthless and whatnot. But I enjoyed that opening scene so much. It's like, okay, you're arriving in Planet Vegeta. You are being ascended into the commander of the Cold Force, now the Frieza Force, and it's pretty exciting. But Frieza himself, he was not really trying to be fighting Goku and or Vegeta. He was more looking for someone to do that on his behalf because he actually admits that he's not at a level where he can try to fight Goku and defeat him. But I thought that it was interesting that he is in a quest to get the Dragon Balls, and he was actually wishing to get like 5 feet taller, not 5 feet taller, sorry, that's crazy. 5 centimeters taller, and I'm like, oh, okay, so he finally understands that if he were to be alive for eternity and be casted into something really dark and like full of void, like Garlic Jr.'s Garlic Jr. or Garlic Jr.'s father. Which one was it? We don't even talk about Garlic Jr. either because he sucks. But anyways, he too had like eternal life and he got thrown into the dead zone or something. And then, that's just endless agony. So I guess Frieza was just more careful about what he's wishing for. But basically, the logic behind that is that Frieza seemed to keep getting mocked over being short or something, so he just wanted to look more threatening. And then Bulma herself, she was gathering the Dragon Balls because she wanted to look younger, because of course she is a lady who's rich and full of vanity. And I guess that's just important to her, and we've always known her to be that kind of character. So, anyways, but I think it was cool to see that in this movie there was a sense of purpose, but it was also one that had an ending that I wasn't sure at all what would happen with Broly. I just assumed that he would be once again this really, really evil character who could not be contained, but he was actually someone you could reason with. So instead of him getting killed, he actually ends up being saved by the Dragon Balls and he gets sent back to that one planet where he grew up in. And I thought that was nice because now this leaves the possibility open for there to be another Dragon Ball movie or even him appearing later in the saga. And who knows, maybe we can have some kind of a tournament of power where Broly is participating in there, but as an ally. And then Goku in the end was talking about visiting him and possibly even training him so that he could control his powers better. And basically, Broly's power, it's it's shown as he can learn on the go, but at the same time, it's pretty much the ape form being turned into, what can I say, a transformation technique in which you don't have to actually physically convert yourself into an ape. You can somehow rechannel the energy for you to remain your normal form, but you still pack destructive force. Does that make sense? It's like he is an ape, but in human form. He has the ape brutality, the ape strength, but he retains his normal form, and therefore he can be more agile, which it used to be a huge disadvantage when you were a giant ape. And it also was a major flaw that in order for Saiyans to tap into that power, they needed to retain their tails. So Broly had his tail cut off by Paragus, but he was still able to like jump into that strength, like the ape strength type of deal. I don't know how to put it into words, but I thought that was neat. We had never seen that before. It's if Saiyans wanted to have that power, you needed to have the tail. But in this storyline, they decided to play with it a bit for you to somehow learn how to tap into that power without having to turn into an ape, if that makes sense. So I thought that was neat. I did not see that coming at all. We never really knew of Broly being an ape like that, at least not that I can recall. But I even considered that because Broly was learning on the go, I was worried that they may show some bullshit that he is able to somehow become Broly Blue some fucking how. And I'm glad that didn't happen. Basically, Broly's blue form or god form would be the ape form, but in the form in which he can still remain normal, like in his normal state. But anyways, guys, overall, I enjoyed this movie so much. Honestly, this is my favorite Dragon Ball movie ever. Very well written. It was not boring. It had a good pacing. It was very nicely presented. Good soundtrack and very full of action, and even on the parts where it would slow down, I thought that it was interesting. We get to know a little more about old characters that we really didn't get to explore much. We see more of King Vegeta and we see more of the origins of Raditz, but it's really irrelevant because he really looks like a big noodle from how skinny he is. But but anyways, it was nice to see what some of those characters were doing and just to revisit them briefly. And even though that story of, say, Bardock and all of them, even though it was very brief, it was well summarized. And I'm just glad that we got a different take at it. So yeah, you guys, that's pretty much my thoughts. I really enjoyed it. It was an awesome movie. It was so nostalgic. I cried in parts of it. Oh my god! I did not want to admit it, but the part where Bardock and Goku's mom, did they say what her name was? I don't think so. But yeah, they did say her name. It started with Go too, but I can't remember. Anyways, that part where it's nighttime and Bardock is carrying his pod and he's saying that he's used to destroying things, but he's finally saving something or someone. Like, that was so sweet and so nice. I enjoyed that scene so much, and my eyes were actually getting watery because I'm like, look at that. These are parents who care about their child, even though their child is power level disabled to where he's weak as hell. Like, they still care for him and they're trying to send him into a planet or they know that he's going to prosper. So I thought that was so sweet. And then the part where Broly was telling his story of how that little green creature was the only friend he has ever had. That part too, I was like, oh, it's not, okay, this movie had emotional scenes in it, but it's nothing that is over dramatic. It seemed fair. I'm glad that we had those scenes in there. So that was exciting. I liked that so much. I was wondering where that furry towel came from. So I'm glad they had Broly explain that. The scene that was cute was the one when Frieza killed Broly's dad and called out to Broly. You know what? That scene, I knew that Paragas had to die, of course, but the way Frieza was like, oh, a tragedy has happened. A stray blast just killed your father. I'm like, come on, Frieza, you just never fucking change. You're still a massive prick. But it was interesting because all you hear in the movie from like the climax of the movie all the way to the end, it's freaking Broly just grunting and just screaming and powering up and powering it up. And there are so many eyeball close ups. It's crazy. I feel like 90% of the movie was all about closing up on eyeballs and also showing how the irises of Broly's eyes just disappear and how even Goku's irises disappeared for some brief period. Like, come on, Mang. Did you really not have anything else to show except the motherfucking eyeball? We get it. Goku's eyeballs originally are black, and then they turn green if he goes Super Saiyan, and then they turn blue if he turns Super Saiyan blue, and then they turn red if he turns into a god, and then they turn freaking white when he's about to black out, just like everyone else. Like, we really need so many eyeball close-ups? Broly, like the entirety of his time when he was becoming like ape form in normal form, it's like nothing but zooming into the eyeball, zooming into the eyeball. I'm guessing the director has a thing for eyeballs and irises, but damn, you guys are going to notice that if you didn't notice that. Did you guys notice that? For those of you who are watching and you saw the movie, did you notice how many eyeball close-ups there were, or am I tripping? But I thought that was excessive. I thought that was really excessive. I mean, like even Gogeta had his eyeballs zoomed in like 3 times, 4 times. We get it. We get it. But anyways, I think that too much had happened before Gogeta came about. The Gogeta scenes were not memorable to me. You know what? No, I have to agree. At some point, they entered this mode where during the fight, it seemed like they were, I guess they're moving at the speed of light and they're trying to show all that action with a lot of colors and purple screen and just there seemed to be a whole lot going on in the screen, a whole lot of clusterfuck things, and I'm like, how did that happen again? Are they just moving so fast that they see the molecular spectrum or something? But again, it was beautiful to look at, but in a fast-paced action fight type of deal, I think it gets a little messy and a little confusing. I think that fight could have been better. The fight that I enjoyed the most was the beginning of Vegeta and Broly, because they had Vegeta doing like certain moves that we had never seen before, and I guess the current technology and animation allows for that. But when it came to Gogeta, it kind of slowed down for me because you knew that his power had really grown and that he was going to own the day. But when it was Broly versus Vegeta and then Goku versus Broly, individually it was fine, but then when two of them started fighting Broly at the same time and then they fused, I feel like it slowed down for me. Like the action was just not, it's not horrible, it was just not as cool as the warm-up fights, you know. But that's just my opinion. Maybe someone out there will find that that's their favorite part of the movie, but for me personally, I feel like Broly versus Vegeta was the best part. Let's see, where am I at? Na, 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 na. Just 5 centimeter people thinks he is still growing. Yeah, that was funny. Bulma was saying, if I make myself younger by 10 years, it's going to be obvious that I did something to myself, whereas I want for it to look natural and normal, something like that. When he turned blue, there was gray. Well, Broly is what you call the legendary Super Saiyan. He doesn't need blue, just like Gohan doesn't need blue. True. I'm kind of ecstatic that you like Dragon Ball Z. Oh, absolutely. Boy, Dragon Ball Z was my childhood. I will make a video on all the action figures I used to have because I was telling my best friend about it and I showed him every single character that I owned. And that collection, I gave it to some child back when I was like in sixth grade who didn't have any toys. My mom was like, "Hey Zam, you have like 7,000 toys. Do you mind giving some to the child of one of my colleagues? He doesn't have anything." And I'm like, "You can give him my Dragon Ball Z stuff." And she was like, "What? For real? Seriously? I mean, you love that shit. You safeguard it. It's your favorite stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, he can have it." So to give something that was so important for me to a child just like that without second guessing it, from that point out is when I realized that wow, I'm finally maturing. But yeah, yeah, your girl knows about Dragon Ball Z. There's a lot. I also did reviews of like the Budokai games and the Tenkaichi games. But after that, I sort of not dealt with it anymore. But when I heard that Super was coming out, I wasn't watching it at first, but then my boyfriend was telling me that he was watching it and that stuff is really good. And the thing that sold me on Super was when my boyfriend was saying that they had Dragon Balls that are supposed to be like the size of planets. And I'm like, what? And that they had to, this Shenron was so huge that they had to like, somehow he became minimized. I forget how this happened, but they created a small. Shinran created a small image of himself or something. Do you guys remember that? I can't recall. But when I was watching Super, I was just excited at how good it looked and how the pacing of it was. It was decent, but the Tournament of Power to me it dragged on for a little too much. Um, but the the only part I didn't enjoy much was that Goku Black stuff. I thought that was kind of boring for me. But the filler episodes that they had to me were pretty entertaining. So, whereas Dragon Ball Z, when it had filler episodes, they were kind of meh. It felt like an afternoon wasted looking forward to a Dragon Ball episode or Dragon Ball Z episode that just never picked up. So to me, Dragon Ball Super, except for the parts in the Tournament of Power when I was just ready for it to end, I thought it was good. The very ending, it was super good. Yeah, Jiren was no joke. Let's see, where am I at? I need a Ginyu Force movie. Oh, you know what? They appeared in this movie, but they were just like in the background. They never talked or anything. That would be interesting. What do they do during the time that they're not with Frieza? We need to email like Akira Toriyama or whoever, Toy Animations, and whoever it is, and we need to tell them about it. Hey yo, we need a Ginyu Force movie. I never thought about that. The Ginyu Force, given that they're a group of like what, 5 people, there's stuff that you could do with that. Imagine doing a Ginyu Force movie in which you have a brief introduction of the origin story of each of them and then how they got recruited into the Ginyu Force and then what the Ginyu Force does when they're not with Frieza. There's actually good material there. Yeah, yeah, I would totally be down for a Ginyu Force movie. Let's see. That's yeah, Guinea, 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 Genie. I forget how she pronounced it already, or how Bardock said it already. And that's the part, yes, when Frieza destroyed their planet too. Yep. See, when it came to the Saiyans, I was always kind of devastated that their planet had to be just blown up like that, because it's like they are this race of warriors that have their pride, but then they're also slaves, but at the same time they conquer places to sell them, but they're still enslaved by Frieza. What was the Saiyan life like before Frieza took over? You know, what would that look like? But I'm not sure we need a Saiyans movie like that when most of Dragon Ball is all about the Saiyans, you know? I feel like a Namek movie would be boring, but maybe there's something interesting that can be made out of that. They gave some hints about Ginyu members, not sure how they would, since the original are dead, so maybe a history of their formation or something. Yeah, yeah, I would say that would be a pretty cool movie. Yeah, I agree. Could be a pretty cool movie. For you. I think you said that for when I was talking about the eyeball zoom in. Yeah, like their origin story. Turquoise. Oh, it was cool when they fought inside that instant transmission form. And also, did you learn to freeze people like hit? Yeah, I was wondering about that. I'm like, wait, what Goku is doing looks like a move that we've seen before, and I didn't think about hit at the time, but now that you mention him, yeah, that's what that was about. There's a lot of power to be contained within Broly, and even then, Broly was pretty much breaking free from it and actually somewhat paralyzing Goku himself, but Goku was able to take the punch to the face and then just keep wandering around. But but to me, I was impressed that Broly was able to hold up so well with Vegeta in the beginning, even when he turned into like God form. Yeah, yeah. Broly's a good learner. He may seem like dumb, but when you are destined to have a big power, I guess. At this point, when they would use the scouter and they would talk about power levels, I'm like, yeah, how relevant are power levels in digits now? How do you even measure blue form? So I think that we can do without the scouters. I think the scouters should be reserved more for what they actually used it more in the movie anyway, which was to like track down people. But to try to use it to measure someone's power and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be stronger than this punk just because I have 1,000 points more than he does. I think we're way past that. So maybe it's a little bit of nostalgia within that as well, like back in the day when they needed scouters to do everything, but to still use numbers, it's kind of whack. Like, come on, you're not Dragon Ball Super Ring hard enough. Leave that for Dragon Ball Z, you know. It used to make sense back then, but in super terms, scouter readings don't make sense. No, they were instant transmission world. Okay. Hello, buddy. If you come to Baltimore, we can hire you. You girl, Kamala Harris is coming. Dragon Ball Z, 5 minutes is 5 episodes. Hire me. Let's see. Okay, it looks like I am pretty caught up in the comments. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure. That's pretty much all that I have to say on this movie without being repetitive and honestly without telling the whole story of the movie, which I kind of did. But yeah, again, I thought this was an amazing movie. I'm so glad I saw it. Definitely the best Dragon Ball Z movie I've seen. I was not bored. I did not. I feel like I did not even blink any second of the movie. But I'm so glad that it's out. Everyone should see it while it's out for like a limited time. I mean, every movie is out for a limited time, but for especially limited time. So if you're someone who's into Dragon Ball stuff, you should definitely go out and see it. I believe